Welcome to this edition of Tour Confidential on Golf.com. I'm Jessica Marksbury, joined today by Jeff Ritter and Cameron Morfitt via Skype. Well, it was a big weekend for former world number one Martin Kaymer. He was back in the spotlight, winning the Players' Championship in the dark by one shot over Jim Furyk. And speaking of world number one, 4 players had the chance to unseat Tiger Woods at the top. Those 4 players, Adam Scott, Henrik Stenson, Bubba Watson, and Matt Kuchar, and nobody was able to get it done. So Cameron, my question for you is, with Tiger out of the mix for the foreseeable future, does reaching the top of the rankings really even mean that much?
No, I don't think number one means a whole lot right now, Jessica. I think it's just more about whether there's a player that's compelling enough for us to get excited about golf. And I think right now what's so crazy is that we have guys like Jordan Spieth who we're really excited about, and then they just can't quite get there. It's funny to look at the results actually after the Players that Rory actually only finished a shot behind Spieth. So I think I've come up with a solution, though, to the problem, which is that we got to have Spieth play the first 3 rounds and then have Rory play the last round, because Rory's having a big finish. Spieth's kind of fading away at the end. Between the two of them, you got the number one player in the world. They're unbeatable.
I like that. I like that. Jeff, to go off of what Cameron said, I don't actually think it's that big a deal either, because to me, Tiger will be number one no matter what happens throughout the rest of the year for a long time going.
I think it's not as big of a deal to us in the media anymore, and I'm not sure if it's big a deal to fans, but to the players themselves, I think it is. I mean, you look at what Rory achieved 2 years ago, reaching number one. That was one of his stated goals for the year, was I want to be number one in the world. Same that year with Lee Westwood and Luke Donald. And you can see the fact that we had 4 guys who could have taken number one last weekend and failed to do it. I think it's on their mind. I think these players see that as something special and meaningful, and they want to go get it when they have a chance, because Tiger had such a stranglehold on that ranking for so long that this is an opportunity for them. So it's a little bit diluted and maybe a stale storyline for us in the media and maybe even for fans. But for the players themselves, I think it's something they still want.
I just like the fact that at least the guys who are in the mix, a couple of them have won majors. I mean, no offense to Lee Westwood and Luke Donald, great guys, great players, but when you reach world number one and you haven't won a major, I just think there's got to be kind of an asterisk there, especially when Tiger isn't playing. So going forward, Jeff, who do you think is the most likely player to finally take over at the top?
To take over and stay there?
I
think it's still Tiger. If you're asking me to pick anybody in the world right now, I think if Tiger's able to come back healthy, which is a huge if, but I still think he showed last year he still has that extra gear where he can string off multiple wins in a season. I would start with him as somebody who could still get back to number one and stay there. Spieth is great. Spieth would be on the short list too, but I would start with Tiger.
I would say Spieth. I mean, Spieth is doing almost everything right. He's getting a little fidgety on the weekends, and he looks a little uncomfortable. He's starting to spray it a little bit left and right off the tee. Obviously, he's still making pars, but once he figures it out, gets a little bit more comfortable on the weekends, I think Spieth is going to be really tough.
But Cameron, does Spieth deserve to be number one if he's just contending? I know he has one win and he's great. We know he's the next big thing. But if he gets to number one without winning anything else, does he really deserve it? Just saying.
He won't though. That's the thing. You've got to win to get to number one. He's not going to just suddenly magically get to number one. I think he's got to win. He knows that. Everybody knows that. He's getting a little skittish on the weekends. He actually looked a little more skittish at the Players than he did at the Masters. But once he kind of gets a little bit more comfortable, I really think he is going to start to get some wins, and then number one just kind of follows from there.
So let's put we'll put some fish and chips on it at the British Open, Cam. How's that? If Spieth doesn't have a single win by the British Open, fish and chips dinner. How's that?
And I'll bet you a lager and lime and some fish and chips.
All right. A lot of confidence coming from Cam's corner. Jeff, a little bit skeptical, but hey, you never know. It might happen this week. The Byron Nelson is on, and that is Jordan Spieth's home state. So Cameron, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for joining us here on Tour Confidential on Golf.com. We will see you right here next week.